Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Jeremy Corbyn's critics say he's a hopeless idealist whose policies will never be supported by a majority in the country. But his supporters are delighted that their leader is happy to say things former Labour leaders would run miles from. So what do party members in Brighton think is more important? Principles or power? Our Adam's been finding out.
Now, this question is sort of floating around this conference as a bit of a background hum, but let's turn up the volume and ask people, what's more important, power or principles?
You have to have both. Okay. So I'm going to put it in both.
I have a feeling a lot of people will do that.
Yeah.
Principles.
Yes.
Ultimately, the right principles will take you into power.
What would be a red line for you?
A red line, principle-wise?
Yeah.
EU referendum, if we were to campaign to withdraw from the EU.
We did this last year and it got cut.
Well, I mean, do you think your new leader, Jeremy Corbyn, is interested in being in power?
I think he certainly is now. You need to be in power to put the principles into action.
What if you have to compromise some of your principles to get into power?
I think everyone has to compromise at some point or other, because there's not everything I agree with is in the Labour Party policy. So
you think power is more important? You've just talked yourself out of saying principles are the most important.
There's not much point shouting on the sidelines. That's not right.
Do you think there's a danger that Labour might end up doing that?
I fear that that could happen.
We created an NHS back in 1948 because you cannot do anything in opposition, so it's vital to be in power in order to make real change for the country.
That was a very good soundbite. Are you like an MP in training?
Possibly.
Your sunglasses are amazing. I feel like I'd like do my hair in them.
All right.
How do I look? How do I look? Do you think Jeremy Corbyn's going to stick to his principles?
Yes.
Hasn't he changed his mind on a few things lately?
He's the only one that speaks with the power in his voice. You can hear it. He's the one that, when he talks, you really believe what he's saying and you're gripped to what he's saying.
Where do I put?
In the book. Well, this is the power box, and that's the principles one. Not like you to sit on the fence.
Power and principles.
You're the least fence-city person in the whole world.
You can't have one without the other. You must have principles. Never ever lose your principles.
So a session's just finished in the conference hall, so it's getting absolutely mobbed now. Everyone grab a ball!
It is a totally false premise.
And I couldn't agree more with you, comrade.
Nonsense.
Ludicrous premise.
Who's responsible for this rubbish?
What's more important, power or principles? Do you think that for too long Labour was about the power and not about the principles?
Yeah.
Who'd you blame for that?
Well, who could you say?
T. Blair, G. Brown, E. Miliband?
Not Ed, no. So it was once before. It was Tony, really, and Mandelson, New Labour. New Labour did it. Okay.
John, you're from Sky News, home of technology. What do you think about this as a piece of broadcasting technology?
It looks very old technology to me, but mind you, we're about to do something very similar. We're about to ask people whether they'd like to see Trident banned, Jez we should, or Core blimey no.
Surprisingly low tech from Sky News there. Well, the balls are in, but where did they go? A majority of people chose principle over power, but a fair few people put a ball in each.
Adam with his mood box there. I prefer the mood box, I think. And we can talk now to Emma Reynolds, who was in the shadow cabinet until Jeremy Corbyn became leader 2 weeks ago. Emma Reynolds, does the reaction to the mood box question disappoint you, that people were more interested in principles, or the majority thought that was more important than power?
Well, everybody in the Labour Party, members and MPs alike, are absolutely passionate and committed to our principles. We want a more equal society, we want a fairer society, we want to protect the most vulnerable, but we want other people to get on and fulfil their potential. But many of the people that you interviewed said that we need both, and I would be in that camp. You cannot deliver on those principles unless you win elections. Yes, because before Jeremy Corbyn's election, you warned that the Labour Party had a choice. Either people think it's better to be in opposition and be pure, the purity of opposition, or they think the electorate is wrong. So, again, people did put in both pools, if you like, but in the end, they think they would rather be in opposition and be pure than in power. Does that worry you? I think the vast majority of Labour Party members want the Labour Party to be back in government, and they want us to be back in government so that we can deliver on our principles, and I think the vast majority of members think that, really.
Right, but what about ideological purity? Because in a way that has been encapsulated by Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. We can see the queue of people behind you. You have to admit that they have captured something here that Labour hasn't seen for years, during the time of Ed Miliband, certainly.
I think we do need to draw lessons from this. I think some of us in the Labour Party have perhaps been a bit too technocratic or managerial, and we need to learn from what's happened here. People do want authenticity, they do want us to be true to our principles, and I've always been true to my principles, but I also must stress that if the Labour Party is about anything, it's about changing the country, and the only way that you do that is that you have to win elections, you have to get back into power.
Right, and in order to do that, do you think you will see Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell row back on some of their ideological positions?
I don't know. I think it will be interesting to see. Jeremy Corbyn has a big opportunity today to set out his stall and his vision for the party, and I think the thing he has to do, which all party leaders have to do, frankly, is not just talk to the hall. He needs to talk to the country, because I think the country do want to know more about him, and this is a big opportunity for him to tell them what he's about and where he wants to take the Labour Party.
Right, I mean, you didn't really give him much time yourself because you were a member of the Shadow Cabinet, but you very quickly made a decision because you said you didn't share the same policy ideals on key things like Europe, on Trident, on NATO. Do you regret that decision now?
I don't regret that decision. I think it was the right thing to do to give Jeremy the space to build his own team around his own vision. I feel very passionately that we should be fighting to remain in the European Union, and I'm going to be working alongside Alan Johnson and other colleagues, and that's what I'm going to dedicate my time and energy to in the coming months and years.
Yes, but to some extent they have rowed back on those key positions, so actually as it stands at the moment they're not pushing ahead the Labour leadership with campaigning to pull out of Europe or pulling out of NATO, and in fact the issue of Trident wasn't even debated. So why didn't you stick around in the Shadow Cabinet, push them towards your point of view?
Well, look, there are other foreign policy differences that I have with Jeremy Corbyn, but I respect that he has a mandate. I was really glad that 4 days into his leadership he clarified his position on Europe, and he committed the Labour Party to campaigning to stay in Europe, and I will be part of that, part of the Labour team pushing for us to remain in the European Union. But I think it was right that some of us said that some of the differences that we have with him are too big, and that he needs to have the time and the space to build his team and to set out his vision for the party.
Right, but they're making overtures, aren't they? John McDonnell, in his speech yesterday, said directly to people like you who wouldn't serve in the Shadow Cabinet, come back, help us build a new Labour Party. What do you say?
I would say I haven't gone anywhere, as you can see. I'm at the Labour Party conference. I'm a Labour MP. I may be sitting on the back benches when we return to Parliament, but this is about a bigger team of people, whether I'm on the front bench or on the back bench. What I want is a Labour government, and we'll be working together to try and secure that in 2020.
Do you worry, like some of your colleagues, perhaps on the right of the party, the Blairite wing to use that term, that actually this softly spoken manner, this more emollient tone, certainly by John McDonnell yesterday and perhaps from Jeremy Corbyn today, masks a more rigid radicalism? Is that your fear?
Well, it was a strange day yesterday because I woke up to see the front page of one of the big newspapers in our country, The Times, with my name on the front page, saying that there would be an organised effort to deselect me, frankly to force me out of the party that I love and force me out of my job. And then a few hours later at lunchtime we have John McDonnell telling us to come back, and as I said to you, we haven't gone anywhere. So there is, I think that both John McDonnell and Jeremy need to close down this idea that people like me, just because we have differences of policy, and in this new straight-talking, honest politics, I think we should be able to air those differences, that somehow that means that we should either leave the party or be forced out of the party. I'm not going anywhere. I'm passionately committed to the job that I do on behalf of my constituents, and I'm passionately committed to the Labour Party that I love dearly and that I came into politics to serve.
Are you worried about your future, Emma? Because, you know, you're relatively new in terms of being in the parliamentary party. Are you worried that there's not going to be a place for you and your views?
I'm worried about the future of our country because we have a Conservative majority government, and I'm worried about the kinds of things that they've already done in the last 5 years and that they're planning to do in the next 5 years. That's what keeps me awake at night, rather than, you know, my career. It's much more important to me that I fight on behalf of my constituents and that we do our level best to get back into power. The sooner the better, because the Conservatives are making poorer people poorer, and frankly they risk taking us out of the European Union, because I think that David Cameron is more interested in trying to play to his backbenchers and keep his party united than he is in the national interest. And I think those are the big dangers for the years ahead, rather than whether I'm on the front bench or the back bench.
Right. What's the one thing you'd like to hear him say, Jeremy Corbyn, today as you wait outside there to go into the hall?
I'd like him to set out his stall to the country, and it would be too easy to just talk to the audience in the hall, and that's always a temptation when you're speaking from the podium at conference. Actually, what he needs to do is to set out what are his big ideas for the country at large, and how is he going to communicate with the electorate beyond the Labour Party's membership, beyond the election that he's just won. He needs to start focusing on the election that's coming in 4.5 years' time, the general election.
Emma Reynolds, thank you very much.
I've been getting away with it all